Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is the Commando Chat, a no-holds-barred, anything-goes videocast about everything and anything gaming related. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome to the Commando Chat here on the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I am Andrew with you here as always. So for a lot of my life, I've always wanted to play miniature games. I've always seen, Games Workshop out there, specifically 40K, and I've been very interested by it. I've looked at it, but I've never gotten into it, mainly because just of the time constraints with my own personal life, not to mention the significant financial barrier to getting into something like that. And then when Star Wars Legion came out, I was very enthralled with it, especially when the Clone Wars came out. And what I'd done is I had sent a link. I was like, wow, look how cool this stuff was, to my wife, and I was like, man, I just don't have the time and stuff to get into this. And I mean, she's amazing and supportive. And for Christmas last year, she bought me the core set of the Clone Wars core set, with the intent, because she likes General Grievous and he's in there, and I like the clones and she knows I like them, and that's what she bought me. So now I'm into a miniatures game, right? And we threw it out there and we played it with Starbucks coffee one Sunday morning, and I was hooked. I just love the way you can customize units. There's a lot of strategy. The game itself is just fun, and yes, we're into it just from a casual level, but I'm very into it. But the one thing that I hadn't really been into and had always kind of scared me about it was just the pure time constraints of trying to paint the army and stuff like that. So I was originally thinking that I wouldn't paint my stuff. And then, COVID hit, and we all suddenly found ourselves with even a little more time than we thought. And one of the things I started to do was I started to paint my terrain. So what I wanted to do tonight was, share my, by no means professional, but share the skirmish table that I have created, which I also kind of used as a paint experiment. So I just wanted to share those results with you all. Before we start today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to Gunguy Games, who supplied me with many of the printed models that you see here today. Remember, as always, you can visit them at www.gunguy.com and use code Commando10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase. The terrain pieces shown in today's episode are available either printed or with STL files at imperialterrain.com. Please do note that Imperial Terrain is not a sponsor or associated with Dice Commando in any way. Okay, so thanks for joining me today and going through this with me. And yes, I am a little bit showing off some of my work, but that's not really the point, right? So the main idea here was that once I decided I wanted to start painting, I was kind of, I was looking at all this stuff out there, and there's a lot of great, amazing painters out there, to which I am nowhere, like, that I'm not a good painter. Let's just put it that way, right? But I was learning, right? So I went out there and I looked at a lot of stuff. And once I decided that I wanted to start trying it out on myself, remember, as always, you can visit them at www.gunguy.com, trying it out myself on my miniatures at checkout. What it really came down to was I didn't want to risk my miniatures, right? I didn't want to screw up and then either have to go buy new stuff or, just have bad figures on the table. I mean, nobody does, right? So I figured the easiest thing to do would be to start experiment on my terrain. And that's really what I did. So when you look at the table today, I am proud of the layout itself, and I'm happy with the results, right? But you'll see a lot of colors, not necessarily in theme, and the reason I was doing that was just experimenting, right? For example, what I'm showing up right now, the three colors that you'll see a lot of, the reason that I went with those is because I was looking at those as to see what color they would look like if I were to paint them on my clones as accent colors, right? Like 501st color, the 203rd, whatever Cody's regiment is, right? 212th Cody's regiment, right? So the idea that you'll see a lot of those colors in there because I was really just testing and learning before I did them on my miniatures, right? So What I am showing right now is my top-down layout. So Amy and I, we play Skirmish, right? That is the 500-point smaller mode of Legion. It goes a lot faster. It's a lot better for the way we live our lives, and it's also much less of an investment because we've been, slowly building our armies as the stuff we actually care about and want to buy comes out. So what I'm showing right now is our table that I've created. Most of it has been actually, all of it has been acquired through Imperial Terrain, right? Which is 3D printing. They also do STL models. We had bought originally one set of pallets, and then huge thank you to Gunguy Games. They're also getting into this, looking at me supporting this game through them as well. They had one of their friends 3D print some stuff for us as well. So I acquired some of that, which I was able to test print. So what you're seeing right now is the top down of my table. So you can see the blue and red deployment zones there, as well as a movement 1 barrier around the edge of the table. I did kind of break some rules here. You're supposed to have all the terrain one range away from each other. So I kind of grouped some stuff together to that regard. But the idea was to, for a skirmish mode, right, the Separatists, with the way Grievous works specifically for us, Grievous is at a huge disadvantage on an open field. Like, he just is, because he needs to be in close combat. So I wanted to have enough blocking terrain to have him be able to dodge around, which is kind of backfiring me with the way Cat Bane works. But, giving Amy an advantage doesn't hurt my life, right? Because then she still wants to play with me, right? But the point is, we have a lot of mixed here. I think the table itself looks pretty good. So what I want to do, I want to cut away and actually go to just kind of a live view of the table itself in real life. Again, this is the top down, but we'll go check it out in person. Hey guys, so this is the table IRL. You can see we're looking at it kind of from the side view as proposed. I went ahead and put some figures around just to give size perspectives on everything, right? These crates, for the most part, block. We just consider them full blocking. It's not entirely blocking, as you can kind of see like the tips of some guys' heads over it, but we just consider all crates to be line of sight blocking. Of course, these guys fit in here for just cover, and they can still shoot. Over here with the stack crates, I've got CAD hidden behind, right, to kind of show the height 2, which is relevant for him from a jump perspective, right? So he can jump over using his jump move, or even better for him, right, he's hidden behind, he can pop out, do his shot, and then move back, which is a pretty cool move. Droids there, of course, have cover. You can see the long crate there on the side for kind of a competitive cover. We have Rex over here, hidden behind. You can see you can get a pretty nice, well-covered, partially obstructed view of the battlefield here. And then just another cover spot over here. So you can see both sides have pretty equal cover. A lot of different colors on the board, which was expected because we were playing around with it. But yeah, that's what it looks like for real. Yeah, good old CAD hidden back there, ready to strike. So this ended up being my favorite piece, the orange and black kind of Kyber crystal theme crate, Rogue One Kyber crystal theme crate. I really like the look of this guy. I was really pleased just with how he ended up coming out. You can see I have a little paint work to do on this side still, but the color scheme looks really, really good there. I also wanted to point out, if we move this guy, you can kind of take this apart, but the one thing I was really going for with the rust look, just doing a Agrax Earthshade wash there to make it kind of look old and dirty. I was pretty pleased with that. And you can see again on the double crates how we got kind of that washed look as well on that bottom crate. So So what I'm splashing up right now is a summary of all of the various colors that I used on the table. There's a fair amount of GW paints. Most of those ended up being contrast paints, which I really like the way those worked. I even did use them on some pretty large flat surfaces, as you may have noticed, which has mixed effects based on what it is. And then the Vallejo paints there in the middle column, I had to, when I first started, I didn't thin them out, which was a huge mistake. So that was a learning rate, was to thin them out at about a 10%, so like a 1 to 5 or so. That's what I did. I know that some people thin them more, but I was just using normal water. And then some of the learning I had was really on how to use shade. I don't think I've completely figured all of that out, but what I wanted to go through, just to kind of share my learnings and my experience, was go through the various pieces that I have and kind of show you what I did, what worked, what didn't. So the first we have are the scatter crates. The scatter crates, these are all the small crates. There's 4 groups of them around the board, and these are the ones that Amy actually bought me these for Valentine's Day. So they were very important to me that I get them in the right theme. And all of these were based, as we go through all these videos, all these pictures, they were all based with Wraithbone spray, which is truly, I mean, there's no argument that that's truly a fantastic paint, right? I mean, it's $20 paint, and it definitely earns up to it. Right, so what you're seeing now is a picture of my droids hidden behind one of the outcroppings. The base is what I want to talk about first, right? So if you look at the base, you can see how what I really wanted was for the base to look kind of old and rusted. So I based it with Wraithbone and then went over it with a Wolf Gray, just with a brush. And then I just washed it with the Agrax Earthshade. And I was really pretty pleased with the way that it came out, looking kind of rusted, right? I mean, I think that there's definitely some improvements to be made if I were to do it again. But I think overall that the rust look there was really pretty successful overall. All right, next we're looking at another group of scatter crates, and what I want to call attention to here are the larger boxes. So again, everything based with Wraithbone, but I used the Militarium Green and the Basilicanum Green, both contrast paints from Games Workshop, and I just slathered those on. You can see the green and the gray crates there. It's as you look around the table once we do the zoom out, or you may have noticed it in the video before. I kind of alternate. I had 2 greens and 2 grays, and vice versa of each type. But you can very clearly see here on the gray how the contrast paint really filled into not only the edges on the top, but it also filled in. I mean, I was just slathering this thing on, right? And it really filled in very well into those crevices there. And it gives it a really nice look. So I was really pleased with that, how it works on the sides. I wasn't so much on the top, but that may have just been a technique issue. With the green, here it looks fantastic because these are much smaller pieces, but you would see a very similar thing with the contrast on the larger crate as you were to look at the other parts of the table, right? So such as here, you can see how the green kind of accumulated down in the cracks, but on the top it thinned out a little and didn't quite work. Now looking at the smaller crates here, what I had done here was I went the scarlet red there, and then I washed it with the Agrax Earthshade. And then on the top, that blue crate was actually a 50-50 mix of the Ultramarine Blue and the Wolf Gray by Vallejo. The Ultramarine Blue is very, very dark blue, way darker than I thought it would be when I started this endeavor. So I ended up mixing just what I had, and actually I was pretty pleased with that. And then that crate there on the edge is actually the Wraithbone spray, just covered with a paint we'll talk about in a second, which is very clearly probably my favorite paint. I really love that color combination. That's actually that crate wasn't part of the plan, but I just ended up going with it. Okay, here we have another, just another view of the set of crates with really the same mix that I was just talking about, right? But here you actually have a better view here of the base and how it looks kind of rusty and dirty, and that's really what I was going for with kind of the entire theme here on the small scatter crates. I really wanted them to look used and abused and old. All right. Next are the two stackable crates. So these are both 3D printed files from Imperial Terrain. These both I got from Gunguy. So thank you, Derek, for making this happen. It was fun to paint these. So the bottom crate was actually done in the exact same style as the base plates for the scatter, where I did the wolf gray with the Agrax Earth Shade, and then the top crate was just straight Militarium green. You can see how it collected. You can see that honestly it didn't work great on. So the thing is, when you get in close, it doesn't look great, but when you're looking at it from far away, I think it actually looks pretty good. But those contrast paints just they don't work very well on large flat surfaces. So that was a good learning I had there. This one, Rib Crate number 1. This is I really like this color. It's very simple. It's just Wraithbone under on the primer and then Skeleton Horde on top of it. Obviously I used a black just to touch up those canisters on the side. But the takeaway here is, I mean, this is exactly what I painted my droids in. Albeit very more carefully than this. But this color, this picture is actually not doing justice on how cool this color looks on the table. And then Rib Crate number 2, I'm also pretty pleased with this one. I think this crate looks really good. It came out, so it was just Scarlet Red. I based, this was actually done with the Tamiya Fine. But then the Scarlet Red by Vallejo on top of it. What I did not do, I did not paint red on the ribs themselves. The ribs are completely white with just Basilicanum gray over top. If I were to do it again, I would probably do the whole thing in red and then Basilicanum gray over top, just so you wouldn't have, you can kind of see in some of the spots where it looks like it didn't quite get painted and filled in. And that's because of the way the contrast flows. So I'd probably paint it all over again, but I'm actually still, this crate looks really good on the table. So I'm pleased with that one as well. This, again, like I talked about, this is my favorite piece. This is Hex Crate number 1. This is Orange Fire and then Black Templar to kind of fill it in. There's not too much more to say here because the colors are pretty self-explanatory, but this piece looks really good on the table, and hopefully it looked as good as it did when you watched the video. Hex Crate number 2, I'm not as pleased about. What happened here was I was very pleased because I did the orange one first and I thought it was super awesome, so I just copied it, trying to pick contrast colors that I had. So I did the ultramarine blue over the heavy gold brown, and it just doesn't look. I mean, the problem is it's being held up against the orange one, which I love. And this one looks okay. It's just not quite as striking on the table. And the blue is really blue. I mean, blue is really blue. I get it, but it's not quite what I was hoping for. Next on the big long crate. So the problem with the Wolf Gray. So what this is it's the Tamiya Fine primer and then Stonewall Gray over top, and then Wolf Gray kind of in the recesses there. And the problem is that the Wolf Gray is a very blue gray, right? I mean, it's a space Wolf Gray, but that's what it is, right? That's what it's mocking. Which obviously is blue, like anybody who's been in gaming knows that, right? But it really doesn't work very well. I mean, you can see very clearly here that it doesn't work very well against the gray, so I kind of regret this. The good learning here was the heavy gold brown. I love this color. I think it'll look really good. I think it would look really good on like clone shoulder pads and stuff like that. So I think that one's a win in terms of how I used it and for what I was experimenting for. But I really need to find something else instead of the Wolf Gray, because it just doesn't work here. And quite frankly, like maybe I need to find a darker gray and use the Stonewall as the filler and then a darker gray on the outside. Because this thing's just a little too, it's a big piece and an imposing piece needs to look good, and this just kind of drops the ball in my opinion. Next, so these were not on the table, but I just did some fun barrier testing, right? As you guys know, there's 8 barriers that come as your normal terrain with the core set. So I was just kind of playing around. I did a separatist theme, couple separatist theme barriers with what I had. So I just did the standard favorite wash because that's, well, it's not actually a wash, but it's a Wraithbone and then Skeleton Horde on top of it. It feels like a wash with a contrast paint, but that looks really good. Over that I did, or under that actually, before I did That's true. Before I did the Skeleton Horde, I actually put down the red and the blue before the Skeleton Horde, and then the Skeleton Horde went over top of it. And then what you see on the right there was just what I was trying to do, just like a standard gray barrier, doing the Basilicanum gray over top the Wraithbone. I wasn't very pleased with that. You can see a lot of pool marks. Again, the contrast paints have a lot of struggle over very flat surfaces. So I think that was really the fail there. But man, I mean, the Wraithbone Skeleton Horde color is really just truly fantastic. So in going through this process, obviously I had a lot of, I mean, I'm happy with a lot of my results. I mean, not all the color combinations and everything I like. Some of the washes didn't work. I didn't wash it great. And, you know, I mean, that's part of the learning process. I'm not hating on myself for that. But one of the things that I did really learn from this was really how expensive just the paint is, which is just an add-on, right? I mean, some of the Games Workshop stuff is really expensive, and I'm not really casting shade much on spending $5 to $7 for a pot of paint, as they call it. I mean, that's fine, especially because I do respect the engineering that goes into some of this, like the contrast paints and stuff like that. Like there's some serious engineer. I don't think people respect the amount of engineering and the amount of manufacturing quality that goes into that. So I think those are worth it, but I think the fundamental problem, especially from like a terrain perspective for me, is how expensive some of the sprays are, like the Wraithbone sprays. I mean, most of the GW sprays, like primer sprays, are like $20. Like that's a lot, right? $20 is a lot. So kind of the question I had was, could I go out and find other more basic stuff that would kind of do the same job? So that's what I want to look at right now, is kind of a little experiment that I did from a cost saving standpoint. All right, so just wanted to give a visual here on the paint experiment. So in the middle obviously is one of the best paints out there in terms of just color and coverage. This is the Wraithbone color. You can see I tried to add a little shading from the top down on how you can do it, but it's very much like it's a bone color, right? That's why it's called what it is. This is the popular Tamiya Fine, just a bright white, works great for the clones. Again, you see a pretty good coverage there on it. It's nice, thin, smooth. And then, so this is $20. This small can cost me $11 in my hobby shop. And this Rust-Oleum, which I picked up at Home Depot for $3.90, it's either 97 or 98, I forget how they price. But this is what we're looking at here, right? You can see, I mean, it is a little thicker, there's no doubt there, but the coverage is pretty good. You have a ton of detail still in it. I mean, it picks up, I mean, you can even see the 3D printing lines, which I know I need to sand down, but I mean, the point was to leave it and see what it all looked like and see how the coverage was. You can see it is, well, it's a little hard because this is the Wraithbone. I mean, this is a little shinier. Like there's no doubt about it. Again, I went with the satin color. I went with a color that I would just leave as more useful because it's kind of like a military green, right? But I think that from a terrain, like I don't know that I would use it on figures. I'm not saying that, but from a terrain perspective, considering that I can get 5 of these babies for the same price as one of these babies, I think that from a terrain perspective and just the ease of use, I think I prefer this. So that was really just the test, was to see, you know, if we could save really money and time. Because, you know, again, you're painting a $20 paint that you're using for your base, and then you're just covering it up just because you want it underneath something else. So there's a lot more color options, obviously, for this. There was a really cool color I was looking at yesterday that was almost like a Wraithbone-ish color. So I might try that as well. But like I said, I just wanted to, you know, give you guys, this was just a test I was doing. Oh, that's actually pretty good setup there. But this was just a test I was doing, just try to put it all kind of in perspective. I don't think the cheaper paint's really that bad of a trade-off from a terrain perspective. So anyway, that's my take. Hey guys, so thanks for joining me, and if you're still with me at this point, you were clearly interested in what I had to say, so I appreciate it. But yeah, I just wanted to share kind of, not, I mean, it wasn't so much bragging, it's just kind of like sharing my results and trying to share just kind of the color combos. So we'll see if in the future I get brave enough to actually paint my clones. I have painted up one squad worth of battle droids, but they are way easy to paint with that Wraithbone Skeleton Horde, and then the black combo. It works really well, and they look really good. The clones are a lot more complicated with the black wash getting everywhere you don't want it to be, right? So anyway, if you liked this episode, make sure to like. If you're not already subscribed and you've made it this far, you should totally subscribe, man. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and if nothing else, guys, go Commando.